Thank you guys all for coming to Neil's discussion on digital accessibility, why it's important, and most importantly, how to get buy-in from clients. I know that that's a tricky thing that we all struggle with. And Neil Williams is with Zealous Web. He's been using Expression Engine for well over 10 years. Zealous Web has been active in the EE community and the EE conference for years and years, and we're really excited to welcome Neil to speak today. So with that, I will turn it over to Neil.
There we go. Can you hear me? Good. Okay. So is everybody in that wants to be in? I'll start sharing my screen as well. There you go. So my slides are showing. You can hear me. Happy days. So first of all, I just want to say it was a really exciting talk about EE Pro. It's nice to see low search and everything getting rolled in, and I'm kind of looking forward to getting clients back onto an annual license to get them in the habit of paying for regular upgrades as well. So I think this is probably about it for who's going to turn up. So let me get started. So I've been a digital agency owner for 15 years, and I've been working with Expression Engine since about 2010, pretty much from the beginning of the EE2. I've always got a lot of love for EE, both as a product and you guys out there in the community as well. And it's, even though we use other CMSs and stuff these days too, I'm always thankful to EE for helping me to build some amazing products for our clients over the last decade. So I started off working as a back-end developer, working on Expression Engine pretty much every day. And then I gradually shifted over more into project management and started doing more client-facing work. And then in more recent years, I've been primarily focused on account management and sales. So this shift really happened about 5 years ago, which was around the same time when we started working with an Indian company called Zealous Web. So as Lydia's mentioned, they've been a part of the community for years as well, and they became our trusted outsourcing partner. And then a couple of years ago, I was asked to head up sales and account management for Zealous Web in the UK and Europe. And that's pretty much what I've been doing for around the last 3 years. It's really great. It's interesting working with different agencies. It's really exciting. I get to see new workflows and technologies and do stuff that we don't normally do. And we work with agencies on a part of full-time dedicated resource hire basis. And we can work with a wide variety of projects, including things built on EE. So there's a little preamble and intro to Zealous Web for people who aren't familiar with us. Let's get started. So I want to begin with a definition of what is web accessibility for those of you that don't know. Web accessibility is all about making sure that the websites and products we build for clients can be used by everyone, including people with disabilities. So making sure your website's accessible benefits people with a wide range of disabilities, auditory issues, cognitive issues, physical impairments, speech impairments, and visual impairments. Like another thing as well, digital transformation has been a really hot topic in recent years, and it's something that has really accelerated during the last 18 months of the COVID-19 pandemic. And like obviously digital transformation's a really good thing, especially for like outdated manual and paper-based processes in the public sector. But what we all have to remember as development professionals is that when we transform these services, it's important that we don't leave anyone behind and exclude anyone. So that's why I quite like the term digital inclusion. I think it's a really great term because it helps to steer the conversation away from people that, not just people who've got permanent disabilities. And it helps you to think about accessibility in a wider context. You've got people like using mobile phones, smartwatches, smart TVs, other devices that may not have conventional input modes, older people who've got changing abilities due to getting old, people who have temporary disabilities, which I think is quite a good one. People maybe they've lost their glasses or they've got a broken arm. And then also, thinking about people who may have a situational limitation. So maybe they're working in bright sunlight where they can't see the screen properly, or, they're on their phone watching videos when they shouldn't be, and they can't listen to audio. People who've got a really crappy internet connection or have limited or expensive bandwidth. So it's not just about disabilities. Digital inclusion and accessibility impacts all sorts of users. So let me just run through what I want to talk to you about today. So I'm not going to talk about the specifics of how you can make your websites accessible. I'm not going to teach you how to run audits. I haven't got a list of cool tools you can use, and unfortunately, I haven't got any silver bullets that we can just drop in to tick the accessibility box for your clients. But what I do want to do is I want to try and help everyone to get it straight in your minds what digital accessibility and digital inclusion is all about. Point you guys in the direction of how you can start to deliver more inclusive projects, and hopefully give you some inspiration so you can go away and make this part of your agency's secret sauce and use it as a USP. I want to give you guys some ammunition that you can use to educate and inform clients and prospects. Really trying to get them to help to buy into making their new websites accessible, and why it makes good business sense for them to be digitally inclusive. And as Lydia said in the intro, this is a nightmare quite often getting people to understand this, especially in pre-sales conversations. So why is this important to me? So here's a photo of me out with my in-laws from a couple of years ago. So there's 5 people here who've got a hereditary condition called congenital cataracts. So this is a condition where a child's lenses in their eyes become opaque, and it usually happens from birth. So what's interesting is there's 5 people here, and they've all got varying degrees of vision, which is partially to do with the condition, but it's mainly to do with the advancement in medical technology over the last 50 years. So let's have a little look at who we've got, talk about their conditions and how they interact with technology. So this dude in the middle, this is my father-in-law, Keith. He's the eldest person here. He's got limited vision in one eye with no lens, and he lost his other eye many years ago due to complications of treatment for the cataracts. So he has to use a magnifying glass to read the newspaper. He's got a giant TV for watching football on and watching the news on, and uses an iPad with the Zoom features for social media and web use. So then that's my sister-in-law, Nicola. So it's the same kind of story. She's got no vision in one eye and limited vision in the other, but she had an artificial lens fitted sort of like in the early 90s, which gives her limited but functional vision. Without that implant, she'd only be able to see shades of light and dark. Nicola relies heavily on her iPhone for pretty much everything, I guess as most people do, banking, shopping, web surfing, and also uses it as a portable magnifying glass. So this is my other little sister-in-law, Chloe, who's a little bit younger. So she's also got artificial lenses, but they were fitted back in the early 2000s. And other than having a pretty crazy prescription for glasses, which when you see it, it looks like something off Einstein's whiteboard, her vision's pretty much normal, so much so she's eligible to get a driving license here in the UK. So the last two are the kids. So me as my eldest niece, she had artificial lenses fitted about 10 years ago. And again, it's a similar story to Chloe. Her vision's fine with glasses. And then this little girl here, this is my niece, Eva. She was born premature and pretty much blind from birth. And then this is where the medical advances really start to kick in. So she's had about something like 56 operations, and that ended up with her having a transplant of lenses from 2 different donors, which has resulted in her having 10% vision. So she's got the biggest access need. She has someone in school to help her out every day, and a teaching assistant, and she's learning to read Braille. She uses her iPad for pretty much everything, as all little kids do, watching videos and playing games, but she kind of holds it right up to her face like that. And what's really interesting is when she's out and about, she uses her mum's iPhone as a portable magnifying glass. So like if you go to the zoo or something, she'll zoom in to see stuff that's far away or to look at pictures on a sign. And the other thing that's really been great for her is having an Alexa in the house, so she can interact with things around the house and put music and things on more easily. So none of these guys have to use a screen reader, which is what most of us think of when we think about assistive technology. I just wanted to share this personal story with you guys to help you think differently about how people maybe interact with the things that we all build every day, and not necessarily in a way that you may have thought about. So this gives you some insights into why I'm passionate about digital inclusion, but I just want to throw in a few caveats before we get into the meat and potatoes of my presentation. I'm not an accredited web auditor. I'm not a lawyer. I'm just a web professional who cares about digital inclusion and web accessibility. I'm on the same journey as all of you guys, but we've all got a great opportunity to try and make the world a more inclusive place if we can get clients to buy into it. Right, so where do we start? So before you can begin pitching clients and prospects on your accessibility prowess, you need to make sure that you guys have got your head around how to deliver accessible solutions. So this needs to be part of your initial development process and also your ongoing services. So there's two main ways that you can approach this, and I definitely suggest using both. So the first one is getting trained up and getting some certifications. And the second one is partnering with an existing accessibility consultancy who can help you with auditing. So I'm going to start talking about certifications. There's a couple of different things out there for individuals to gain, and then there's also a relatively new ISO standard. And if you want to do this right, accessibility isn't just about your front-end devs. It really impacts every part of your team where they need to be educated. So that's your accounts guys, your PMs, your devs, designers, your QA testers, and even your copywriters all need to be thinking about things through the lens of making inclusive websites. Okay, so on to some of the accreditation. So there's an organization out there called the International Association of Accessibility Professionals, and they've got a few different certifications. The aims of these are to help you to define the knowledge that you guys are expected to retain, provide metrics for employers to measure the competence of employees. So that's great for you guys who are business owners. Improve consistency and quality of work produced in the industry, give teachers a clear curriculum to follow, and offer you guys as both as businesses and individuals a credible selling point for your skills and accessibility. So there's two kind of levels of these certifications that they offer. So the foundation level one, which is kind of high level training on the broad concepts. This is really great for everyone to begin with. And I'd certainly recommend that account managers, business owners all get this sort of level of training at a minimum. It covers everything at a really high level without having to dig into the nitty gritty of how to audit websites. And then you've got the technical level where you really have to understand the standards and guidelines and how to use the relevant tools and techniques to run audits properly. So the first one, this one up here, is CPAC. So that's the Certified Professional in Accessibility Core Competencies. Try saying that after a few beers. This is the basic level and the starting point for everyone getting certified, and you need to have knowledge around three areas. So that's accessible and universal design, disabilities and assistive technologies, and then accessibility related laws, standards and strategies for management. So as I said, this is where everyone starts out. It's great for business owners, PMs and team leaders, everyone, even if you're not actually building websites or software yourself. In order to gain this qualification, you've got to SWOT up and then do a 2-hour multiple choice exam. This is a paid exam. I think the price is between about $170 and $500, depending on if you're a member of the association or if you live in a developing country or not. So the next one then is the technical one. So this is what your developers and stuff will be doing, and that's the Web Accessibility Specialist certification. So this is great if you're looking to build new accessible products or audit existing websites. So you need to have a deep understanding of the technology and standards. You need to be more tech savvy and be able to design, implement and manage accessible products. In order to pass the exam, you need to be able to recognize issues with in the code and express what's incorrect or missing. So you don't necessarily need to be able to fix issues, even though I guess most people in here probably can. And you need to understand usability and the impact that these things have on end users. So this is really the technical qualification for your project managers, your devs, designers, testers, and content managers. And this is going to cost you around $225 to $530. So once you've got both, you can then call yourself a certified professional in web accessibility. This demonstrates you've got the high level knowledge and deep technical understanding. It's kind of like a badge of honor that, you're qualified to do this stuff and you know what you're doing. They've got one other certification out there as well, which is the accessible document specialist one. So this is targeted at people who, produce a lot of documents or are involved in training or policy. I know, like, when we've worked with external auditors on web projects in the past, inaccessible PDFs usually end up being a massive issue, especially for like information heavy clients, because you can't just fix a few website templates and re-audit the site to resolve the issues. There may be thousands of documents that need to be re-audited, and this costs between like $225 and $430 to attain. So you do need to renew these every 3 years at a reduced rate. But the good thing about that is it gives you the chance to stay on top of the latest changes in guidance, and see how these things apply to emerging technologies. So that covers all of the things that you and your team can get certified for. But then you also need to think about how this gets baked into your development process. So that's where this new ISO standard comes into play. So it's got the snappy title of ISO 3071 or 30071. And this will help you to understand how and when to implement best practice throughout your business processes. So using this in combination with training and certification, you can be sure that you're doing things properly. You can buy the document for this for like $170, but always with these ISOs, you probably need to pay someone to come in and certify you separately. So the cost on that will vary depending on where you live and who you use. So that covers the first part, which is training and certification. But the other thing, which is, and this is something I really recommend that everybody does, is get out there and find a dedicated accessibility consultancy who you can partner with. So there's guys out there who just specialize in performing accessibility audits. They do user testing with people with disabilities, and they can help your clients to write accessibility statements. So there's a few benefits to working with a partner. So the first one is they're 100% focused on accessibility and can share the burden of auditing projects. They can arrange real user testing, which is it's pretty much the best way of identifying issues. And what I love about having real users involved using assistive technology is it really helps to drive the message home to your clients when they get to see an actual person who's had a real problem with something on the website. So that's something that's really invaluable. And then they've also got a ton of experience in writing access statements, which is a delicate matter because they're kind of legal documents. So especially if you're living in the US where everyone's a bit more litigious, you want to cover your butts and you don't want to be writing these documents yourselves if you don't know what you're doing. There's lots of good firms out there. I know a couple in the UK, but there's going to be good guys everywhere. So what to look out for? Are they certified to any of the standards that we've looked at today? Do they offer real user testing? Will they help to write accessibility statements and letters and conformance for your clients? And then the last thing to think about is, what does their client list and case studies look like? Are they working with big companies, public sector organizations? These are all things to consider. But obviously bringing in a accessibility consultant is going to increase the cost of your projects, but at least then you can be confident that the products that you're building are better, and you can be confident the issues are being accurately found as well. If you guys tender for public sector work, certainly here in the UK, a lot of places in Europe, and I know like in California and a couple of other places in the US, it's a legal requirement that things need to be built to a decent standard of web accessibility. So this is going to get scored as a must-have requirement on tenders, and they're going to have an idea of how much these things cost. And actually, the ISO standard that I mentioned earlier on covers the topic of procuring accessible digital products and solutions. So if you get shortlisted, you're probably going to get questioned on it. And I've actually got some links in a Google Drive folder, which Lydia can share with everyone at the end, where you can read up on some of those questions that you may get asked. So the benefits are, they're going to work on one thing. They can bring previous insight. And then another really great thing is they can help you to pitch and plan for regular re-auditing and client training, which means that you build this beautiful website and hand it over and it's fully accessible and it doesn't all go to crap when they let their content admins loose on the website. But the great thing about re-auditing is you guys need to fix any of the issues that get found. So that means more billable hours for you guys. Okay, so how do we go about pitching this to prospects? So I come up with a few different angles you can use to try and get buy-in. And, with these things, you can pick and choose which ones you want to give emphasis to, depending on the client's location, what industry they work in, their personality type. So these fall under 5 categories: legislation and legal compliance, the moral/ethical angle, e.g. it's the right thing to do, missed opportunities, reputation management, and SEO. Okay, so the legal angle, this is a big one with plenty of facts and figures. Most G20 countries have incorporated laws or guidance on digital accessibility. Most of it based on WCAG 2.0 or the older WCAG 1 standard. And at the moment, they generally apply to public sector services, but there are some that increasingly so they're applying to the private sector too. So as you can see, we kind of got like, the US, Taiwan, most of Europe, New Zealand, Australia, Hong Kong, Israel. So there's, this is something that's slowly sweeping across the world. The legal angle is a really good one to use for clients in the public sector or the private sector. It's a good one too, but especially in the US. And if you pitch in online retailers, because there's been loads of lawsuits filed in recent years. So I've managed to dig out some facts and figures from the US to try and support this angle. So there's accessibility.com and UsableNet released 2 reports on the sort of state of the legal landscape last year. So last year alone, there were 265,000 demand letters sent, which resulted in over 2,000 lawsuits getting filed. The top 5 industries were consumer goods, apparel, food, hotel, restaurants and leisure, and the beauty industry. And then the top 5 states were New York with 54% of lawsuits, California, Florida, Pennsylvania, and Illinois. The top 3 states actually make up over 90% of the lawsuits nationally in the US. One thing it's important to mention is that the state that the lawsuit gets filed in doesn't necessarily have to be where the defendant's headquartered. If you do business in a state, you can get sued there. The sharks are definitely beginning to circle with this stuff. Something else I discovered was that like 20% of these lawsuits were filed by just 6 plaintiffs, and nearly half of them were filed from just 5 law firms. So there's law firms out there that are really, lasering in on this and actively looking for issues. Name them, Caroline. Yeah, they're in the report. I won't get into it now, but I've got a Google Drive folder with these full reports. You can dig into all the details then. Another good thing is accessibility.com. Keep an up-to-date database of all the legal cases in the US. So like for you guys in America, this is dynamite because you can filter it by state and industry. So you can dig out specific examples relevant to a prospect. And I think what's really going to be gold dust for you guys is if you look in there and you can find evidence that one of their competitors has faced legal action, that's going to be really useful as part of your pitches as well. A few other interesting facts I found: 20% of lawsuits were filed against people who've already been sued under the ADA at least once in the last 2 years. It's mainly focused on desktop websites, but there's an increase in lawsuits for other channels. So, like video captioning is getting to be a big one. Mobile apps is another big one. I think I saw a case like Domino's got sued about their mobile app a couple of years ago. And then the other thing I found really interesting was there's been like 250 lawsuits filed against companies who use a widget or an overlay to tick the accessibility box off their list. The next argument, then, this isn't as doom and gloom, and it's the right thing to do angle. This is great for your non-profits, the public sector, and brands that like to be seen as being more ethical. It's a good one to lead with because it's a bit more positive, and especially for countries that aren't as litigious as the US. There's some great facts and figures for the legal stuff, but I do think it's important that everyone tries to frame it about better serving customers and not excluding anyone from using products or services. So I found a great quote in an article from NBC News from a lady called Holly Scott Gardner, who's a British disability rights activist. She said, "It capitalizes on this fear that disabled people are out there to sue you and make your life difficult, and it furthers this really horrible view of disabled people that they're just out there to get money. And they just use their disabilities for that." And I mean, I think that's a really good point in there. The reality is most people who are disabled using assistive technology, they just want to use the same things that we all do and take for granted every day. Most of us have been on lockdown at some point over the last year or so due to COVID-19. And as we've already said, that's really accelerated the rate of digital transformation. Millions of people have been forced to sort of do online grocery shopping and other things they may not have done before. And then this has really highlighted the disparity and shortcomings in these services for people with disabilities. So around 1 in 5 people have some form of disability. And, I think a big chunk of these would have had to shield or self-isolate during the pandemic for their health reasons. And then not being able to complete things that we all take for granted isn't like a nice to have thing for them, but it has a massive impact on their independence and ability to live an everyday normal life. Okay, so the third thing I quite like to use as an argument is the missed opportunities. This is more compelling, and I find this resonates well with executives and other senior decision makers. So as I said, 1 in 5 people in the UK and US have got some form of disability. Globally, it's around 15% of people, which is about 1.3 billion people. So they represent the disposable income globally of like $1.2 trillion. So like that's, these are massive numbers. It's really impressive, but I think it's almost too abstract to use or for an individual business owner or decision maker to wrap their head around. So I managed to find a UK report called the Clickaway Pound from 2019. So this was a survey of people with disabilities. Let me put some figures on that for you. So this survey estimated there was 7.15 million people with disabilities in the UK, and they had a combined online spending power of 24.8 billion pound, which is like 34 billion US dollars. So 63% of these guys rely on some form of assistive technology. Primarily, this would be screen readers, magnification, and speech recognition software. But what was really interesting was 70% of the respondents who had access needs said if they go on a website and it's not accessible, they just click off and go to a site that they know is actually accessible. So that represents 17.1 billion pound or $23.4 billion in lost sales every year just in the UK. So 86% of these guys said they'd spend more online if there were less barriers. 83% said they just stick to sites they know they're accessible and barrier free. And then when you think that it's not just about the money that they spend, but their immediate friends and family probably follow suit and will stick to these retailers who accommodate people with disabilities, it really starts to paint the picture of the scale of missed sales. 75% of respondents said they've actually chosen to pay more for the same thing on a site that was accessible rather than save a few pounds and use a less accessible competitor's website. So I know a lot of you guys are out there in the US of A, and these are UK figures, but hopefully gives you an idea of the potential of lost sales that are out there. But there's plenty of other missed opportunities. It's not just people with disabilities. So this, I like this graphic actually from Microsoft's Inclusive Design Toolkit, and it helps you to get an idea of, people having temporary or situational disabilities, not just permanent disabilities like we've already talked about. So you might have someone who's got one hand because they've hurt their wrist or they're holding a baby. Like I touched upon earlier, elderly users. So quite often, like our parents' generation, may not identify themselves as having a disability, but they've probably got some visual, auditory, or cognitive impairments. They may not be that tech savvy or IT literate, but they've got plenty of money to spend. Then another great one is people who speak English as a second or third language. So this is where the reading age of text and ramming loads of content into a page really starts to make it difficult for people. I can see, diagrams missing color blindness. Yeah, that's a good point, Rob. My business partner's actually colorblind. So yeah, it was in reading age of copy. So the UK government puts all their content out there, and they have the aim of making their content suitable for the reading age of 14. So if any of you guys out there have ever used any of the .gov.uk websites, especially if it's anything to do with paying tax, they probably do with aiming to lower that reading age a little further, because a lot of it's still pretty difficult to understand. People using mobile phones, obviously that represents a massive chunk of online spending. Responsive design and usability has improved loads for mobile over the last few years. But then when you start to think about someone who's distracted, a busy parent trying to make a quick purchase, someone walking down the street, any little decisions that you make to improve accessibility will have a crossover effect for improving the usability for all users. Okay, so fourth argument, reputation management. So this is a good one to bring in a conversation with brands who want to be seen to be doing the right thing. So while a lot of the research we've looked at said most users just click away to a different website when they encounter an issue, some will quite happily report an issue to your client's customer support team. But then what often happens is there's no clearly defined process for these issues to get passed on to marketing or kicked up to the support and development team, e.g. you guys. So quite often these issues may not get dealt with. So what this ends up with, someone who took the time to accurately report an issue, feeling like they've been ignored and marginalized, and then they end up venting their frustration on social media, which, as you can imagine, can result in a whole poop storm where the complaint can be picked up by activists, law firms, or the Twitter police in general. So the best way to avoid these damages to reputation is for your clients to make sure your site's accessible to begin with, commit to regular re-auditing, remediation of issues and staff training, and then also make sure there's a clear process for the reporting of access issues, that they make their way back to the development team in a timely manner. And then lastly, then this is just a quickie. I don't need to explain this one to you guys really. SEO. Obviously, there's a huge crossover between accessibility and usability. And obviously, the basics of making accessible experience on the web is using properly structured HTML, etc., which will have a positive impact on SEO too. So I guess the point that you really need to drive home, though, it's not just one and done. I mean, I wish I could give you guys like a JavaScript widget or something you could drop in that just resolves all of these accessibility issues. But the reality is, while there's tools out there, they generally don't fix everything. And as I mentioned earlier, there's been like 250 lawsuits last year in the US alone to do with plugins or overlays. So by positioning yourselves as trusted ongoing partners, you can help them protect themselves in the long term by helping with regular re-auditing, fixing any issues that are found, providing additional staff training to remind content managers, etc., that they all have roles to play in maintaining a good level of accessibility. Not saying that content managers don't always remember to do these things, just like they always remember to resize images, but yeah, being on standby to resolve any user-reported issues in a timely manner, that's another great thing as well. Like I said, if someone reports an issue, you guys fix it. That's a sort of positive spin for your clients then, and adds a lot of value for them from a PR point of view. So we've covered some of the different topics you can use to pitch clients and try and get buy-in. So I just want to summarize what it means for your clients and prospects. It's not just one and done, it's an ongoing process. They need to keep working with you and an auditor on the long term. It's not a tick the box exercise. They need to keep everyone regularly trained and updated and remind them to actually do stuff their end. Customer support staff and social media teams need to be trained on how to handle complaints. I think the old mantra, all feedback is a gift, comes in handy here. They need to put a clear process in place so that this feedback makes it back to the development team so you can actually resolve issues. And then that also should be a loop. I mean, if a customer takes the time to report a problem, you guys take the time to fix it. Customer support lets them know. That really helps put your client on a pedestal as one of the good guys. And you're likely to keep that person, or your client's likely to keep that person as a customer, and the customer, their friends and family for years to come in the future. And lastly, I think once you can get your clients to buy into making their website accessible, and they're thinking about digital inclusion, this will start to trickle down into other aspects of their business. So like recruitment, workplace design, internal systems. And to be honest with you, these are things they're more likely to see legal action over, as most G20 countries have got laws around equal opportunities and discrimination in the workplace. Okay, so where you can start right now, I guess you can all go back to the office and look at the sites you're currently working on and make sure they've got the basics. So sufficient color contrast between text and background color, make sure your HTML is structured properly. A good one is to always try and navigate around a website just using a keyboard and make sure that the tab order isn't crazy. Don't cram too much text on the page, or try and talk your clients out of making you do that. And then make sure everything's properly labeled, so like form controls and alt text and stuff like that. Beyond that, the next things to think about, consider getting your guys certified. Think about how you can incorporate training into all areas of your team. So accounts, PMs, developers, designers, copywriters, testers. And then go out there and try and find yourself a reputable partner who can help you with auditing, real disabled user testing, access statements, all of that good stuff. So the benefits for you guys are, you're going to feel good that you're doing the right thing and helping to make the world a more inclusive place. So we all make dozens of minor decisions every week, building websites. But these seemingly inconsequential decisions that we make can have a profound impact on people's quality of life. So while it might shave 2 minutes off building a template, it may really screw up someone using a website. The ongoing revenue opportunities, so you get to build stronger relationships with your clients and increase total lifetime revenue through the re-auditing, training, and fixing issues that emerge. You're going to gain a competitive advantage, especially if you're pitching for public sector work. If you can clearly demonstrate how it's part of your process and you've swatted up and you're prepared to answer any questions, you're instantly going to stand out from everyone else who doesn't mention it or said they just drop in an overlay. And lastly, I just want to leave you guys with one simple thought, and that's poor design disables us all. And that's it, really. That's just something I'd like you guys to chew on when you're thinking about this later today. If anyone's got any questions, we can run through those. Oh, there you go. Lydia's said that you can ask the questions on screen or stick them in the Q&A tab. So Lydia, do you want to give me a hand and sort of moderate through the questions?
Yeah, sure thing. There's a couple on the tab, but we'd also love for you guys to, come on screen like this too. And first of all, I just want to say thanks so much. We've had a couple of accessibility talks throughout the years, but I just think you made it very accessible. I mean, you made it very understandable, and just the way that you presented it, I think, was it really resonates with all of the agencies here. So let's see here. One of the questions that we have is there a flow chart or workflow tool available to help us work through the accessibility path?
That's a very good question, which I don't know the answer to. There's a ton of information on the IAAP website that explain how to work through some of that stuff. I mean, I can have a little look on there and maybe get back to you guys on Slack tomorrow or something. But if there's not, I guess there's an opportunity for someone to put this into a nice, sensible diagram. And yeah, I could just see Josh has mentioned as well that the official guidelines are a freaking nightmare to read. Yeah, I would 100% agree with that. Yeah, I don't know anything easy. I wouldn't start with the official documents. I'd probably try and book onto some of these training. I know with the IAAP, they offer, they've got some like in-person training and things like that as well, which would make it easier. So yeah, I don't know. It is boring. All I can suggest is coffee, lots of coffee. Tips for clients who reject, who don't want to make accept. So this actually is something I was hoping to put out to you guys to see if you had any tips out there as well, because this is something that I've encountered a lot over the last 15 years. I think one thing when I first started out and we were very green as an agency, I actually had someone turn around and said, I don't care about people with disabilities. And they were a coach company, like not coaching as in like a transport company, like bussing people around. So I was like, how would you even argue with that? Needless to say, we didn't work with them as a client. I guess for people who say they don't have website visitors who have a disability, if 1 in 5 people are disabled, they probably do. But if their website's not accessible, you can be pretty damn sure they don't have any customers with a disability ordering online. Plug and play tools like accessibility widgets. Some of them are all right, but I wouldn't rely on one of those 100%. I mean, you're always better off doing the real user testing if budget allows. Again, I said, I'm not a lawyer. I don't know whether these will prevent litigation. I kind of feel like in the US, nothing prevents litigation or people sending you a demand letter about something. So I wouldn't recommend someone wants to use it. If you have a client who insists they want to use it, Josh, I would just, maybe make them sign a thing in an email saying, yeah, this is my idea. I suggested it was stupid, but they went and did it anyway, just to cover your own butt.
Anybody else have anything? And again, we welcome you to come and share your screen. I thought I saw that maybe Kandarp was trying to get on, but I don't see him on here right now.
Yeah, I don't know what's happening, Kandarp. You may have got distracted. Kandarp, you still in here? Oh, there he is.
Okay.
You're on mute, Kandarp. Guess that mute button's well hidden.
All right.
Cool.
Oh,
okay. Can you unmute him from there, Lydia?
I think I can. Let's see here. Okay. I pressed unmute and it doesn't seem to be working. So I think sorry about that, Kandarp. It's great to see you. And if you have any questions or comments, you can type it into the chat. Anybody have any other questions? And I don't think there's another. The next session is in a while, so there's no pressure to wrap this up quickly. But if you guys want to stay in chat at all, ask any other questions. I do want to kind of put a little bit of an ending on it, though, to to let Neil a little bit off the hook. That was a fantastic talk. Oh, here we go. We just got one more. Maybe one angle to clients would be to suggest they could enjoy 15% more business if they made their site accessible.
Yeah, I think that's a really great angle. Like I said, when you're picking and choosing these arguments, it's, as always in sales conversations, you kind of have to look at the prospect, look at their industry, where are they based, but also more importantly, try and get a gauge for them as a person. What's their job role? What's their personality type? If there's someone who's focused on the bottom line, then 15% more business is going to be a great angle to take. If there's someone who's quite compassionate, then you can sort of talk about the doing the right thing angle. Or if there's someone who's terrified they're going to get sued or have been sued before, then, start smashing them with all these legal figures.
All right.
How much does accessibility affect SEO benefits? I haven't got a hard and fast number on that, which is why it was just one little slide. But it's basically, if you're making the site accessible, you're going to have properly structured HTML and all of that sort of good stuff, which will have a slight benefit for SEO. I certainly know that, like with the recent Google algorithm updates, there's a lot more focus on usability. Especially with like cumulative shift layout and things like that. So while that's not directly affecting accessibility, it kind of is, in that if someone's got a physical impairment and they're using their phone and everything's jumping around on the screen, it makes it easier for them to use. There's a blurred edges between where does accessibility end and usability begin, and same with the SEO stuff on that basis.
That's great. All right. Well, I think with that, that's the end of the questions in the Q&A. And I just want to say thanks one more time to Neil. And it's such a great talk. If you forward me the information, we'll post the links to the stuff that you mentioned. And we look forward to seeing you around the conference in the Hangout sessions.
Cool, sounds good. Actually, I just saw Jared put a good point in about alt tags on images. So while you might not pick up customers from someone finding an image on an image search, you never know, it's going to help get you a bit of link juice anyway. And yeah, Jared said as well about tabbing through correct heading order. And this is something like heading orders and alt tags. This is like, you guys will do it right. It's your customers' content guys are going to screw it all up most likely. So this is where the training comes in. And yeah, diolch to you too, Rob, which is, just for everyone that doesn't know, that's thank you in Welsh. So I'm from Wales and Rob somewhere else in the UK. So cheers, guys. Enjoy your lunches. And I'm looking forward to seeing you in the rest of the talks over the next day or so.
Thanks.
Cheers.